Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another live stream. This is the first time that some viewers on Facebook Live would also check this out. So if you go to the Deanstructor Facebook Live and you can't get YouTube up for whatever reason, you can check it out and have a chat there as well. As you can see, I have here a Facebook chat in one column that way, and then down below we have the YouTube chat. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this very special YouTube and live stream that we have. Oh, hold on a minute. I've got just trying to take this off a minute. Hold on a minute. Hold on. I've got double sound problems. That's always the way, isn't it? Typical. There we are. Right. Okay. Now we're up and running. I'm just trying to run and see how the Facebook's going other way, so there might be a bit of overlap. So I'm sorry about that. That was a bit of odd sound there. You might have heard. I heard it. I don't know if you guys did, but I certainly heard it anyway. But yes, hello and welcome to a live stream, as I say. For the next hour or so, I'm going to have an opinion piece here about what I thought about the Scottish Parliament elections that happened just a few days ago. And also get my opinions and thoughts and feelings about it. And you can join in with the conversation at any point as well. There's no problem with that at all. You can leave a comment down on the YouTube chat. It will come up on the screen here, or the Facebook live chat. And I will delve into the results. I'm utilising a few well-known websites for that to have discussions about it. But overall, it was a different one. A different type of live stream this time. Different type of... Not live stream. It's a different type of setup. For the elections this time around. As you know, there was election for the Scottish Parliament that came good a few years ago. Not a few years ago, I've talked absolute rubbish now. There was a election for the Scottish Parliament. Thursday we all voted. Very different because of the COVID situation, all the crowds and queues, and I'll come back to that later. But what was interesting about this year was the way they were counting. They weren't counting it overnight like it's traditional. They were doing it over Friday and Saturday. So I actually didn't know the results of my constituency and the regional vote until the Saturday, which is quite strange. But overall, it was an interesting context for lots of things. A lot didn't change and a lot did change. And I'll discuss that in more details. Now, this is an opinion piece, so my opinion may change, it may be different, there might be different feelings here from what you guys have. I don't expect everybody to be on the same page. I'll be honest with you now, I'm kind of a fence sitter when it comes to the big constitutional question. I do have leanings to independence, but I'm probably more on the fence. I'm not sure, I'm not certain. That being said, some of the unionist propaganda, well, not propaganda, but some of the unionist conversations that were being had were annoying at times because that's all the unionist parties wanted to talk about was the SNP and the independents as a precursor for the recovery. And it was very clear that the SNP were happy to look at the recovery, concentrate on the recovery with COVID and that, and get through COVID before any question of the constitution comes into play. But because it's a 5-year parliament, a lot of people are going to talk about that and have a chat about that. So, but it does annoy me how one particular party leader, who actually I have a nasty nickname for, kept egging on and on and on and on, and kept trying to get a rise out of Nicola Sturgeon. This is a seasoned politician here, and in Nicola Sturgeon, not going to happen. Sorry, mate, not going to happen. And it didn't. It was actually quite interesting how it worked. But there's a lot to talk about, a lot to go through the results and discussions and that. If you want to leave a comment, by all means, leave a comment on either to the right, no, that way, that way, or that way. Leave a comment, say hello, do all the usual stuff, have a chat. First of all, though, we're going to go back to what happened last time round. Now, I have, as a tradition for the past 10 years, done a video based on the Scottish Parliament elections. If you saw the Streamstructor last week, I did the video about how it works with the election as it was in 2011. Now, I did a video in 2016 about the results, after the results happened, a little mini video. And this video is called 5WH. Might make sense when you see it, why it's called 5WH. But this video it allows you to go over the results and see what happened between 2011 and 2012 or 2016 and the discussions in that. And that's my first video for today. And yeah, by all means, have your discussions ready. I will be going through some of the main the big results, one of the key interesting results, I'll be following all leaders' constituencies, those who actually stood, because there was one who didn't, and also looking at all the other bits and pieces for the election and live stream as well. So yeah, stay tuned. Leave a comment down below. Do all the usual stuff. Say hello. And yeah, we'll get talking. But before we start, let's get a video out of the way, because it wouldn't be a Streamstructor without a video. So here is what happened last time. Hello there. Today I'm going to be talking about the Scottish parliamentary elections that were held on the 5th of May 2016. The Scottish Parliament is the body responsible for the running of devolved government up in Scotland from Westminster. It was created as part of the Scotland Act in 1998. The Parliament elects representatives, or MSPs, who are the representatives of Scotland in the Holyrood Parliament. That's where it's based. It's based in Edinburgh, and they deal with such matters such as tax, health, education, schools and environment. It was a policy brought on by the Labour Westminster government in 1997. A 1998 referendum was held to see if people wanted it, and they said yes, hence the Scotland Act of 1998. The first Parliament election was held in 1999. 2016 is the 5th election that has gone to the polls since its creation. The Parliament sits in a building constructed in the Holyrood area of Edinburgh. This is where the MSPs sit and debate all Scottish matters. They are led by the First Minister, who is normally elected from the largest party in the Parliament. Scotland votes for representatives from multiple candidates from 5 main political parties and various independents. Here are the 5 parties. The Scottish National Party have been the party of government in Holyrood since 2007. They were elected then as a minority government, and so they didn't quite get the majority in the Parliament. And in 2011 they became the majority party, so they became a majority government. They are a left-leaning party who are strong supporters of Scottish independence, and are led by Nicola Sturgeon, who became First Minister and leader of the party in 2014. The Labour Party is a left-centrist party who led the government from 1999 to 2007. They are a main political party in the UK as a whole, and the Scottish leadership is led by Kezia Dugdale. The Scottish Conservative and Unionist Party are a centre-right party who are currently the leading party in Westminster. The Scottish branch is led by Ruth Davison since 2011. The Liberal Democrats are a left-centrist party who were the coalition partners in the Westminster Parliament between 2010 and 2015. They've been led in Scotland by Willie Rennie since 2011. The Green Party are a left-leaning party who have a strong environmental basis for their policies. They have been co-led by Patrick Harvey and Maggie Chapman since 2003. The Scottish Parliament has ensured that Scotland can determine its own governance, which tends to be representative of a part of a country which is culturally and politically different from the rest of the UK. Scotland did have a completely separate government and constitution until 1707, when the English and Scottish parliaments merged to become a UK government. There have been strong feelings for Scotland to take care of its own affairs ever since. The Scottish Parliament elects its MSPs using an additional member system. 129 MSPs are elected every poll. Voting comprises of 2 votes. The first vote is for a candidate in the local area or constituency. 1 vote is placed on a paper, this year it was purple, for a candidate, and the votes are tallied up at a local count after polling has completed. The winner is the person with the most votes. It's called first past the post. 73 of the MSPs are elected this way. The second vote, which was on a peach paper this year, is called the regional vote. Parties put the preferred candidates in order of preference in each region. There's 8 of them, and they are used to balance the votes cast overall to allow the Parliament to be represented proportionately. 56 MSPs are split into 7 MSPs per region, and the overall vote in that region then decides the additional members using a method called the Deanstructor system. And I'll explain that in a later video. This election saw the SNP defending a majority government. The seats were before the poll as follows. The SNP had 69 seats, Labour had 37 seats, the Conservatives had 15 seats, the Liberal Democrats had 5 seats, the Green Party had 2 seats, and the others had 1 seat. That was an independent candidate. The campaign was played out where the feeling seemed to be that the Labour Party would do very badly. This has been widely agreed on in the media and within the parties after their massive losses at the UK general election in 2015, where they lost all but one of their MPs in Scotland. The SNP was expected to be the largest party, and some people even thought they could get a majority again. The Conservatives were thought to be snapping at the heels of Labour and were fighting to take over as the second party in the Parliament and becoming the official opposition. The Lib Dems were hoping for damage limitation on the basis that they had toxic links with the coalition they had with the Conservatives after 2010's UK general election, and the Greens were hoping to increase their reputation in the Parliament, taking advantage of Labour's struggles. The constituency vote was interesting. 3 of the 5 main party leaders managed to win their constituency seats that they were standing in. Nicola Sturgeon won in her seat in Glasgow South Side, Ruth Davison and Willie Rennie both won their seats from the SNP. Davison was the winner in Edinburgh Central, and Rennie was surprisingly the winner in North East Fife. Labour only won 3 constituency seats. A massive drop. The Conservatives won in Eastwood, widely tipped to be an SNP seat after the Westminster equivalent was won by them in 2015. They overall won 7 seats in the constituency vote. The Liberal Democrats won a total of 4 seats, and the SNP won 59 seats. The regional vote showed that the Conservatives did very well in general and were rewarded with an additional 24 MSPs, the largest additional MSPs of all the parties. Labour gained an additional 21 MSPs, one of which was for the leader Kezia Dugdale. The Greens won 6 seats, including Patrick Harvey's seat. The Liberal Democrats got 1 extra seat, and the SNP got an additional 4 seats. So the totals after the election are now as follows. The SNP are on 63 seats, 2 short of a majority. The Conservatives are on 31 seats. Labour is on 24 seats. The Greens are on 6 seats, and the Lib Dems are on 5 seats. The SNP didn't get their majority, but they'll most likely work with the other parties, maybe potentially a coalition with the Greens, although that has been ruled out at the time of this video, and probably will deal with other parties on a supply and confidence basis. With the new tax raising powers due to be introduced this year, I hope that this lets the Parliament settle on the workings of the running of the country, as Scottish politics has still got the independence referendum hanging over it, which happened 2 years ago. And to be fair, it has galvanised people's interest in politics, but it has now to be used for the good of the country and make sure that the powers that we have are used and people are engaged with them. The verdict is out on that because the campaign has shown that maybe that's not something they're concentrating on just now, and the constitutional question is still the main point. But we'll see. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later. There you go. That is the first video for today. Hello, welcome everybody. This is Streamstructor Live with an election kind of discussion. Leave a comments down below, have a chat, say hello. As you can see, Facebook Live is working with the comments. I've left a comment there just to test myself. I'm doing a test on Facebook Live today, so it doesn't necessarily mean it will be the continuing thing. It might go off at various points, but I'm seeing how it goes, seeing how it works with the new equipment I've recently acquired, of course, with the Tower PC and that. But yeah, leave a comment, say hello, have the usual chat, what are your opinions on the election, things like that. That video there was obviously my attempt of going over the results in 2016. Now I've got a live stream, I thought, well, let's do it a little bit more. Let's get a bit more into it and do a bit more discussion and chat and talking and everything else and do it from there. So yes, that is the live stream. No, the video from 2016. It was interesting results there. As you know, obviously the SNP were too short. The Lib Dems numbers collapsed. Well, they kind of collapsed in 2011, but that's a different matter. Then you've got the two Conservatives doing a very strong showing, and the Greens having a decent showing as well, and all that. And it was a fascinating, interesting contest. And this time, a lot of people were thinking, yep, the SNP will probably get the majority again. They didn't, but it was interesting to think that was a possibility again. I will go into the nitty-gritty about why, possibly a little bit more, have a chat about it, you know, have discussions with you. If you want to leave a comment, by all means, please do. But overall, it is interesting to have this election this time round where you're voting in COVID, because I thought, personally, that COVID would be a big problem for turnout because people may not want to go to voting stations. But to be fair, I think there's a lot. I think the poster votes have kind of helped in this, because a lot more people doing poster votes this time round, and it helped the turnout. And maybe I was slightly wrong in that, because there's a good example on the international stage of good voting, and that was of high turnouts, and that was the American election back in November 2020. My brain is going 2010. No, 2020. In 2020. Now, obviously, there was other elements to it, but that was done under COVID kind of conditions. So maybe that whole situation of people feeling that they have more time to go vote because they're still on lockdown or on furlough or whatever has helped it. Because this is the best turnout. What was it? I think it was 64%. Best ever turnout for a Scottish Parliament election. Now, opinion polls were bouncing up and down. The SNP might have got the majority. They may not. I will go into that in a bit more. But I wanted to have a look at the manifestos and have a look at some of the stuff. And I did read some of the manifestos. And the Greens was interesting in regards to its green policies and how it was talking to people and what they wanted to do. But they had the independence bent. The SNP, the problem is because of their incumbent government and they had 14 years in power, what they promised to do to try and get things working, it's kind of like, well, you didn't do that last time, you didn't do that the time before, you didn't do that the time before. Is that a problem? With most incumbent governments of 14 years, I would say it's a problem. This incumbent government, I'd probably say it wasn't, because there really hasn't been much of an opposition in the true sense of the word in the past 5 years. I read the Conservative manifesto to an extent just to see what they're talking about, and every section was the SNP did this wrong, they want independence, that's going to cause money problems, we want that, we don't want that, we want XYZ, this is what we propose. Most of the proposals were there, but none of them really costed or thought out, so it's where's the money coming from sort of situation. Now, I did mention that video there about tax powers that happened previously. That's fair dues. It happened, you know, there's tax powers there. I get that. But I'm not too, you know, they've not really used the tax powers that much. They have introduced some tax powers. We do have a slightly different rates of tax in Scotland than we do down in England, but and Wales. But it's I don't think it's made any difference to my money, to be fair. I think ultimately I'm maybe saving a little bit in tax, but it's they've not utilised it that well, and it's difficult to have that kind of disparity. And the whole thing about devolved government is a little bit difficult sometimes for some of the things you can and can't do. I mean, the big disparities compared to England is free prescriptions, free eye tests. The NHS is slightly better funded per person per head than it is down south. It's interesting how it all works and how the discussion works with it. But overall, I kind of wanted to do the vote myself in person. I didn't do a poster vote this time. I know some friends did submit a poster vote. I think they ultimately all went to the polls, but poster vote. Now, it was interesting this time because obviously you've got the situation of COVID, screens, the contraflow system, all that. And I did go vote, but I didn't go vote till the evening. And yeah, let's just have a little look and see what my thoughts were at the time of voting, shall we? And then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of all the results and reveal who I actually voted for. Right, here we are just after 7 o'clock in the evening and I'm off to vote. Could have done it early in the day, but decided to wait till now just because of crowds and social distancing and everything else. Plus I'm out for my daily walks, it makes sense. So, I think I've made my mind up. We'll see if I hesitate when I get to the ballot box. I do have a pencil with me, so I don't take any of what is probably the dwindling stock that they have now, because if you use a pencil in there, you have to take it with you. So there might be quite a few people saying, "Woo, free pencil, I won't vote." Not the best incentive in the world, but there we are. But yeah, off to the polling booth. Go and put my cross on 2 pieces of paper, and yeah, let's see what it's like today. Oh, I made the pencil joke because I've been hearing stories from my friends that people have been taking pencils away with them because they won't let them return. In that polling station, if you use one of the pencils, you return it in a little tub. So they must obviously go around and disinfect them and clean them up every so often. When you're reporting in your name and address and that, this will screen for between you and the person that's take your details down and give you the papers. It's kind of like a contraflow system a little bit. You then go vote in the booth as normal and then pop it in the box as normal. Yeah, I hope a lot of people haven't picked up on that independent green reform or whatever it is up in the middle of the paper, because that's a trick. It's Scottish greens you need to pick for if you went for greens. I'm not going to tell you right now who I went for. I'm going to discuss that as part of discussion later in the stream. But yeah, that's me voted for the 4th time in the Scottish Parliament elections. 5th time in the Scottish Parliament elections. The first one I voted in was in 2003 in the Scottish Parliament elections. So yes, that's me again. Done my democratic duty. And there we go. Now for the best bit of the video. Chatting. Completely chatting. Talking about everything here. Doing everything on here. Hello everybody, and yes, welcome back. If you've just joined us, hello. This is a live stream for talking about the Scottish Parliament elections that just went ahead a couple of days ago. This is an opinion piece. It's my opinions, it's my thoughts, it's my feelings. You want to leave a comment down below, I'm happy to do that. Within polite reason, of course, I'm happy to have a chat and talk about it. So by all means, please join in on the conversation. No problem with that whatsoever. Anyway, moving on just a little bit. I did say I went to vote there and I chose my vote. There's a little kind of, if you know me, you know possibly where I've gone on this. Now, I did mention at the beginning of the video that I'm kind of on the fence. So I can dip my toe into the understanding of the independence cause, but until they actually give proper reasoning about why Scotland should be independent and do it in a way that I feel confident with, I'm not probably going to go wholeheartedly into it. I think that's part of the problem with some of the votes that have happened across the whole situation this time. There's been a lot of discussion about, oh, going to hold a referendum. No, you can't do that. It's illegal. You can't do that. Boris Johnson won't allow that and all this. But the substance isn't there. And until the substance is there, I can't really make up my mind. And I know it's a silly comment maybe to have, and there's people who are completely passionate out there about having Scotland as an independent country and all that, and I completely get you, I understand it. There's also the opposite, where people don't want to go because they don't like the idea, and Brexit's made given a different situation to that in regards to the situation with the Brexit and the borders, and these extra things have come into it, and the questions haven't been answered yet by those who want independence. And you could argue all about the results and the constitutional values and all you like, but until I actually see concrete proposals that I can discuss and have a look at and digest, I'm going to be a fence sitter, and I'll be honest about that. I'll be a fence sitter because I don't know which way I want to turn. Just for reference, in 2014 I voted no, and I voted no because there wasn't enough there on the independence side to make me want to take part, to make me want to say yes. And I didn't think it was a good idea because there wasn't enough security in what they were proposing at the time. And that's a perfectly reasonable response in my eyes to why I voted no. I decided it was better being in the UK than it was being in Scotland. That view has changed a little bit with Europe situation and Brexit and everything else. And if you've seen my YouTube stuff for the past 5 years, you'll know my opinion on that and how unhappy I am about the whole situation of Brexit. And it has coloured it. But the question is, how do you put that forward? How do you discuss that with people for an independence course this time round? You can't just turn around and say, oh, taken out of Europe out of our will. Yeah, great. But look at the problems we've got at the border across the Irish Sea at the moment. Look at the issues with trade we're having at the moment. Look at all the problems we've presently got with regards to the normal economy workings. And obviously, it's kind of muted a bit with COVID. But once COVID's out of the way, to a major extent, we will see those questions being coming up. We'll see those problems. And we'll see whether it's a good argument or not. And until the case is there that I can look from both sides and marry it up, I'm not going to be down one side or the other. I'm going to be on the fence and understand both sides and try and be non-partisan on that. Because of that, I went down party tribal loyalty, as I think may be a word of saying it. Now, when I first voted in 2003, which was the first time I was able to vote in an election, it was for the Scottish Parliament elections, and I voted for the Liberal Democrats. Now, the reason I voted for Liberal Democrats at that point is because they were opposing free tuition fees in the previous Parliament, which obviously we got for students, and they were very student-minded, and I was still in a student mindset at that point. As I've gone on, I kind of liked their whole kind of in-the-middle type outlook. They were progressive, but they had a kind of slight right-wing element to them. That's the nature of both the parties they came from. You got the Social Democrats, who tended to be slightly more to the right than Labour. In fact, they were a lot more right to Labour in the 1980s. And then you've got the Liberal Party, who were certainly more reasoned in their arguments and probably a bit more balanced and everything. And I traditionally have become a natural Liberal Democrat voter. And looking at the policies this time they've done for the manifesto, the thing that struck out to me, which I think is really key, is the education and the mental health side, and I just liked that proposal, so I did both votes Lib Dem this time round. Didn't make any difference, they do as we'll see. However, I wanted to just keep to my original loyalties this time round and not dalliance either way, because I live in a safe SNP seat. It was going to be a safe seat. It was kind of like, it doesn't really matter. As you'll see with the results, actually there was an increase in the majority for the person who ran for the SNP in my constituency. It didn't matter. It really didn't matter. It's an odd one. It's a strange one. It's an interesting one. But it didn't matter to me what to vote, and it would have been a wasted vote for me anyway, because I'm not keen on the Labour cause at the moment. Not traditionally have been keen on the Labour cause. There is familial ties to the Conservatives, but I've never had that strength in there. And I certainly know that in the past, the middle ground is the Lib Dems, and I've kept with that because yeah, they may not be the strongest of setups this time, but I did prefer the manifestos over the others, so I went Lib Dem. And you can chastise me and kill me all you like, but that was my personal choice. So yes, I voted for what they class the Unionist Party, but I went down my original tribal political links more than anything else. So that's how I voted. That's how I did it this time round. Okay, let's go and have a look at some of the results. Now I'm just going to have to tweak something here on the screen, because as you can see there's a Skype there, but there is no Skype active at the moment, so I just need to hide that just so we can get me picture down there. There we are. Right, okay, so I am utilising the BBC News website quite a bit this time, just for all the information. Now we'll look at the scoreboard first, and this is the scoreboard that we came out with at the end. You know this by now, unless you're Sky News, you didn't know who the others were, but everybody else seems to cover it. Now I know people aren't the greatest fan of the BBC, but when it comes to the website stuff, it's pretty solid. I know the TV side is a little bit iffy, but their website stuff I think is pretty solid out of the main broadcasters. And I rely on the BBC more than I would STV, God forbid, and Sky News. I'm not a great fan of Sky News' website. I prefer the BBC, so I was keeping an eye on the BBC's coverage and their website for this, and I picked out all my different bits and pieces here for it. So as you can see, the final results were the Scottish National Party, the SNP, on 64 seats, which is one shy of the majority they need to have an overall majority in the Scottish Parliament. The Conservatives on 31, Labour on 22, the Greens on 8, Liberal Democrats on 4, and none of the other parties got seats in there. Now, it is proportional. It is two sets of elections, effectively. You've got two votes. You've got the constituency vote, first past the post, which I mentioned there, and you've got the list vote, which is basically a secondary preference vote, and it's like a top-up list. So the idea is that the Parliament's tried to be as proportional as possible to the reflection of the actual overall vote. And it's been a little bit more skewed since the SNP took that majority in 2011 towards the SNP, but it's still a lot fairer than what you get the first past the post down in the rest for the UK. So it's interesting. Now there was 3 changes to the constituencies this time round. The first one is where our friend Arthur resides, and that is Ayr. Now this had been held by the Conservative John Scott since 2000 when he got it in a by-election, and he squeaked through last time with a couple of hundred votes, and this time he lost by a couple of hundred votes. As you can see here, Siobhan Brown 18,881, John Scott 18,711. So it was such a small majority. That's a majority of what's that, 170 by Siobhan Brown. Now keep in mind of some of these majorities that we see in these things, because they could be key for next time round as far as I'm concerned. Labour was 3rd, Jamie Ross for Liberal Democrats was 4th, and then you had a Scotia Future candidate of Chick Brodie who was 5th, and that was all the people that turned out. The turnout was 68%, which is a change of 7% on last time. That's quite substantial. That's quite big. That is quite big. Right, okay, so that was that one there, and you can see it's quite a small margin to overtake it. It wouldn't have taken much, but that was the first gain. Now that causes a problem with the regional list, because it means the SNP are less likely to get a seat in the regional list now. They've got that constituency seat there. The next one was East Lothian. Now this used to be the seat of the ex-Labour leader, the previously Labour leader Ian Gray from 2007 to 2011. Now Ian Gray's retired, and because it's not an incumbent seat, it was more likely to be open to somebody to nick it. Paul McLennan won it with 17,968. Martin Whitfield, who was the replacement, who's the Labour candidate, 16,789. So that's just over 1,000 votes of a majority. And then you got the Conservatives 3rd and the Lib Dems 4th. 69% turnout, 6.6% more than last time. I mean, the turnout's a general election level this time round. It's amazing, but again, the majority's fairly small for that one. Edinburgh Central. Now, this is interesting for two reasons. One, it was Ruth Davison's former seat. So the previous leader of the Scottish Conservatives in the last election, Ruth Davison, she has become a member of the House of Lords. So she resigned her seat. Scott Douglas was the replacement. He only got 11,544. Angus Robertson, who used to be the leader of Westminster before the 2017 Scottish Parliament election, UK general election, he lost his seat. He's now back in the Scottish Parliament. He's in the Scottish Parliament with a majority of just under 5,000. That's pretty healthy. Then you got Labour third, the Greens fourth, Alison Johnson, who is, we'll see the name later. And then we got Liberal Democrats, Bonnie Prince Bob. I like that. You get some odd names in the election. I didn't realise that one was there. Tam Laird, Scottish Libertarians, and UKIP at the bottom there. Turnout was 63%. So again, a 60% plus turnout, which is rather intriguing. Then we have, so those are the three results for gains. All SNP gains, one from Labour, two from the Conservatives. Now we'll look at the leaders. We'll look at the leader results. Now, the first one is Glasgow Southside, which is Nicola Sturgeon's seat. And what was interesting about this one is who is fighting against her. You'll recognise that name if you've been following it. Anas Sarwar. He is the leader of the Labour Party in the Scottish Labour Party, and he was in the same seat. Now, he has not won it. Nicola Sturgeon is very popular. It's a very multi-diverse area, and 9,500 majority, more or less, on there. Anas Sarwar, it's the first time, I think, if I remember, where two leaders of major parties have gone against each other in the one constituency. But Anas Sarwar only took that risk because of the way the Scottish Parliament works. So it's not so much of a risk for him to lose this. You may see in the news about all the situation here about Jada Franson, who started to scream a match and basically started being offensive to Nicola Sturgeon on the street outside a polling station on that day, on the first day, on the Thursday. It was an interesting conversation that she had and was involved with that person, and started calling her a racist and a fascist, I think is what the phrase she ended up saying. And she only got 46 votes. She was bottom of the pile. But if you look at all the number of people that are in that one there, so we've got Carl Thornton, Carol Thord, Carol Dobson from the Freedom's Alliance, Greg Energy Advisor. Really? That was his name? Greg Energy Advisor? Okay. Then you got Deke Jackson, the one who caused problems as well, because he was putting racial things towards Hamza Yusuf, who is part of the Scottish Government and won his seat as well, and he was outed. So there was quite a bit of racial tension. 59% turnout. Glasgow tends to have slightly lower turnout than the rest of the UK or the rest of Scotland, but still 11% more than last time. That's a lot. That's a big increase from last time round. Another leader seat who won their seat was Willie Rennie, who won it for the Liberal Democrats. Now, he won it just last time round in 2011, 2012, 2016. I'll get 2011 in my head today. He won it just last time round, and this time he increased his majority to 7,500. So over Rory Fleming, who was second, and then you got Conservatives and Labour. 69%, so nearly 70% for that one as well, which is intriguing. Then we've got Dumbarton, which is where the Deputy Leader Jackie Bailey's seat. Now, she had a majority of 109 going into this election, and she increased it to nearly 1,500. So she managed to hold it, and this was one of the key seats that the SNP wanted to get. If they got this, they possibly could have got their majority, but they didn't, so they didn't win the seat. And 68% people turned out, so that was 7% more than last time round. Then you've got Galloway and West Ham Freeze, another one where it was potentially could have gone, you know, to the SNP. This was one the SNP were looking for, and this is the pivotal one that made everybody think they wouldn't get the majority. If this had gone SNP, I think it was certain people think the SNP would have got the majority. So this was the key seat, and Finlay Carson won it, held the seat, and then Emma Harper, who actually got into the regional vote, was second in that one. So it's a majority of about 2,500 for Finlay Carson there. And the turnout was 65%, again up from last time round. Now, one of the more interesting ones, this is Fraser's seat and Jamie's seat. Jacob Stewart won Glasgow Kelvin, but look who's second. Patrick Harvey. Patrick Harvey is a leader of the Greens, co-leader of the Greens, and he was second last time, and he's second this time. Also look at the name underneath it, Pam Duncan-Glancy, who's an important name we'll come to later. She is a permanent wheelchair user, and there's a lovely story about her coming later. Jacob Stewart, also a lovely story. She's been trying since 1999 to get into the Scottish Parliament, so finally she makes it. There's a lovely story there as well. First woman of colour in the Scottish Parliament, which is amazing to think, 22 years down the line. This is the first woman of colour in the Parliament. 54%. Again, the Glasgow turnouts are lower than most, but still 50 plus is very good for Glasgow. And finally, the last seat, I have to mention it, my own, East Kilbride. Now, this was the Deputy Presiding Officer's, Linda Fabiani's seat. She's retired, and it's been replaced by Colette Stevenson, who increased the majority to nearly 9,000. Over Monique McAdams, who stood in the UK general election last time round, the Labour councillor. She stood there last time round. The other interesting one here is, see, I'm only one of 1,200 votes. Slight increase from last time, so yay for that. But no, overall, the Lib Dems have been bottom of this for the past few elections. But there's only 4 candidates here. But Graham Simpson. Look at that, keep an eye on that name, because that's interesting for the regional lists that we'll go to in a minute. So that's the election results that I thought were interesting of everybody here, and it's interesting to have a look at those and how tight some of those margins can be, and some of them aren't. And across the board, there was a kind of rallying behind the second place to try and knock the SNP off, and they didn't do it. Now, if this carries on, and they do that going forward, in the next election, that could be a possibility where seats change. But actually, that could actually have the opposite effect when it comes to the regional votes. Because if the SNP are close and lose, they're more likely to get list seats. And that's why they won the 2011 election. They didn't have as many. This is the most constituency seats they've ever had, 62. They got 2 list seats. This is the most they've ever had in the election in regards to constituency seats. If they keep this and they build on it next time round, effectively they get majority just bone first past the post, which would be ironic considering the circumstances of the way it's supposed to work for the Scottish Parliament elections. But this time round, I would say, you know, the votes are closer in a lot of places and a lot of regions, and you can have a look at all the results like everybody else can at the moment on the BBC website. I suggest you do that. Look at Wikipedia and that one, not results uploaded, and have a look at the differences there, because it's interesting seeing how it all works in regards to the elections and the votes, because there's a lot more close run races next time round and a lot more marginal seats. So it'll be interesting to see how everybody copes with that when it comes to this. But it's so next time it could be a big change of the guard when it comes to the constituency seats, but it may not change the guard overall. It just depends on what happens in the next 5 years. A lot can change in 5 years. A lot changed last time round. Remember, the 2016 Holyrood election was about 6 weeks away from when the Brexit vote was about to happen. So we didn't know at that point whether we were leaving the European Union or not. So they may look like it's not changed a lot, but it has changed quite a bit. And it's interesting to see that. We'll go on to the list votes now, and we'll have a look at each of the regions. So we'll go back to the main page here, and I'll just bring this up, and I'll show all the information here of the votes. There we are. So as you can see here, Scottish National Party up 1, But 62 constituency votes up 3, but because they won more seats, they're less likely to work in the list vote to get over, because the way the D'Hondt system works is they take all the list votes, they then divide the list votes by the number of constituencies that a party wins plus 1. So because there's usually 9 or so constituencies in each area, basically the SNP's vote, which was the highest of each region vote in each region, was divided by 7, 8 or 9, so they would be lower down in the votes when you do the first run, and basically the person with the most at the top would then get the first seat. They were to then have another divider added on top, they will then be halved, and then the next seat comes up, and they do that for 7 rounds so they can pick out who was available. And this is where the lower parties got most of their seats. The SNP only managed it in 2 places, the North East region, if I remember correctly, and South Scotland. That's the only places they actually got additional seats. So that's how they've got to 64. A lot of people were saying 63 for projections when it was first coming out, but it didn't happen like that. It was only 64. It was 64 it ended up. The Conservatives had no change, but they did have. But if you can see down here, this is a good example of how seats can balance themselves out in the regional lists if you don't get them the constituency. They got 7 constituency seats last time round. They lost 2, but they gained 2 back in the regional votes. So they ended up still with the same number of people as last time, which was interesting in itself. You've then got Labour, who went down 2. Now, Labour had been falling and not actually losing seats consistently since the 1999. Their high watermark was 56. They could have dreamed of being in the 60s for their votes, but they never got there. So the high watermark was in 2016, and in 1999 rather, and the seat count was steadily dropping, and they collapsed effectively from 2011 to 2016. They went from 36 to 24, and then this time they've only lost 2. So they've kind of effectively stopped the rot. But there's a couple of things different with this time round, because obviously Anasawa was on Anasawa. I keep pronouncing names wrong, and I'm really bad at that, so sorry about that. Anasawa was only a leader of the Labour Party for about 10 weeks. So to have a situation where he's kind of stopped the rot and managed to get them at a pretty steady level, they've steadied the ship, that bodes well for Labour next time to beat the Conservatives in regards to, or try and beat the Conservatives next time round. Now, the Greens got 8. That's their best showing ever. They didn't get any constituency seats. Their best result on the constituency only went for 12. Was Patrick Harvey's Kelvin side, his Glasgow Kelvin seat. But they got 2 more, they got 8 regional seats, 2 more than they did last time round, including Lorna Slater, the co-leader, and we'll go into that later. So yeah, a better showing for the Greens, and it does mean that there is 72 MSPs in the Scottish Parliament who are for independence, and this is where the constitutional argument comes in. Then you've got the Liberal Democrats, who effectively now are like a very minor party. They held all their constituency seats from last time round, which is a great achievement for them. I think this kind of what they call the unionist vote has kind of shored them up a little bit, and they lost their regional seat because of the vote share. So they're down at 4, which is a little bit disappointing. And then you've got ALBA, which is Alex Salmond's party, who basically didn't get anywhere close to a vote share to get a regional seat, and didn't get anything at all. So, you know, spanner in the works a little bit. Not really. The SNP still did quite well. So that's your overall totals and your breakdowns there. So let's have a look at... Oh, dropping stuff there. So let's have a look at the regionals and see what's happening here. So we'll go to Central Scotland first of all, and we'll show the elected members. So here are the 3 elected members for the Central Scotland area. Now, the Central Scotland area includes Rutherglen, East Kilbride, I believe Stirling's in there, most of Lanarkshire is in there too. I think Falkirk's in there as well, actually, along with some of Lithgow seats. I think it's Lithgow as well, and the West Lothian seats I think are also in there as well. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But yeah, 3 seats for Labour. Richard Leonard, who was the previous leader of Scottish Labour, Mark Griffin and Monica Lennon. Then we have Conservatives, 3 this time. Stephen Kerr, Megan Gallagher, and you may have noticed that name from the East Kilbride result. Graham Simpson becomes an MSP for the second time on the list votes. And then Greens, Julie McKay got the final elected member seat. Then we go into the Lothian seat, which is Edinburgh, East Lothian, and maybe a couple of the West Lothian seats. I'm not completely sure exactly where it is. My geographical thing is slightly wrong. I'm sure people will correct me on that as we go along, or in comments after the live stream. So we've got the Conservatives got 3 seats: Miles Briggs, Jeremy Balfour, Sue Webber. Then we've got Sarah Boyack, who got 1 of the seats, and Foso Chowdhury also got a seat there for Labour, and then 2 for Greens: Lorna Slater, who is the co-leader of the Greens, and Alison Johnson, who was there last time round. And then none of the others got any seats in there for that one. Then we have the Glasgow area. This is interesting. So we've got 4 Labour seats here: Polly McNeill, Anna Sawa, who should have been top of the list, but he actually put himself second on the list to try and get what they called a zipped up list vote. So basically alternate between men and women on the vote. So, and then Pam Duncan Glancy, the first disabled, first person to be permanently in a wheelchair to be in the Scottish Parliament since it started, which is a really lovely story. Then we've got Annie Wells and Sandish Gillane for the Conservatives, and Patrick Harvey, of course, gets the last seat for the Greens. So the regional votes is basically you get 7 MSPs and the regional vote. They all represent you in your region, plus you've got your constituency MSP. So you've got 8 MSPs basically representing you. So you've got a bit of a fair representation overall. Then we've got the West of Scotland. Now the West of Scotland had at the top of its list vote Jackie Bailey for Labour and what's his name? Jackson Carlaw for the Conservatives. They won both their seats. Jackson Carlaw won Eastwood again, and with a substantial increase in majority. And Jackie Bailey, as I mentioned earlier on, won her Dumbarton seat. So that means that we have Neil Bibby, Paul O'Kane and Katie Clark for Labour, Russell Finlay, who you may have remembered me talking about earlier on, Pam Gosal, the second Lady of Colour ever to be elected to the Scottish Parliament, which is interesting, and Jamie Green. Those are the 3 for Conservatives, and Ross Greer won a seat for the Greens. Highland and Islands. Now, have you noticed when I was going through the discussions there, Douglas Ross was the only one I hadn't mentioned as being in any elections. He could have stood in Moray, he didn't. He decided to be the top of the list vote, and there he is. So the leader of the Conservatives and current Moray MP for Westminster, so Scottish Conservatives leader and Moray MP, is the first list vote. Then we've got Donald Cameron, Edward Manton, who I showed earlier on, and Jamin Howcrow Johnson are in there. And then the SNP, yeah, I was right, it was here. It was in North East. Emma Roddick won a seat for the SNP, and then Rhoda Grant got the last seat for Labour, and Irene Burgess got the next one for the Greens as well, so that was good. Highlands and Islands. So it's Highland Islands, not North East. South Scotland. Now, remember the name I said earlier on? She's not there. Oh, she is. She's down the bottom. So we've got Craig Hoy for the Conservatives, Sharon Dowie and Brian Whittle. Colin Smith, Martin Whitfield and Karen Mockin for Labour. And there's Emma Harper, the runner-up to the Dumfriesshire result, gets in as a list MSP. Nothing for the Greens. The only region where the Greens didn't pick up a seat was the south of Scotland. It was nip and tuck between the Nats and the Scottish National Party and the Greens there. The Greens could have got it, but they didn't. Then we've got Mid-Scotland and Fife. So we've got Murdo Fraser, who was second to... he was in one of the seats. Liz Smith was the second to John Swinney, who's the deputy First Minister at the moment. Dean Lockhart and Alexander Stewart. Then we've got Alex Rowley and Claire Baker for Labour, and Mark Ruskell for the Greens. And then finally the North East. So we've got four for the North East. We have Liam Kerr, Maurice Golden, Douglas Lumsden and Tess White. We've got Michael Mara and Mercedes Villamba. Can't say that. And there's Maggie Chapman, who was the previous co-leader of the Greens. She gets back into the Parliament again as Green MSP on the list vote. So there we are. That is all the list votes and all the discussions there. Now, it's an interesting change, but one thing I did notice, and I did mention this about Linda Fabiani and the East Kilbride seat retired, there's a lot of them who retired from the last Parliament. A few of them women as well. Aileen Campbell, who does the Clydesdale seat, which is below me in the constituency, which includes Straven and Lanark and that. She had been an MSP since, I think it was 2003, but she resigned her seat and stood down for family reasons. Women in this Parliament is in the 50s this time, so it's a lot more parity. There's more women in the Scottish Parliament than ever before, and hopefully, with what's happened with these women retiring due to work-life balance, hopefully they'll be able to make changes this time round. Now, what I understand is about 25%, there's about 25 MSPs or so who are coming into the Scottish Parliament this time round who weren't in there last time round. That's interesting to see and see how that works. And overall, the gender balance is better, but there's a lot more new blood. So it looks like it might be the same result overall, but actually it may not be as clear-cut as that, and it's going to be a different dynamic. We'll close off a little bit here. I've done a lot of chatting, a lot of talking, which is something I don't tend to do a lot of, but on these live streams, I did have other people involved. I didn't expect anybody else to be on tonight as far as I was concerned. It was just kind of like an interesting experiment for me. It seems to been running okay on Facebook most of the time, which I'm really happy about. I'm really happy about that as well. But overall, my opinions. Looks like there's not much change, but some of these votes, and if you can drill down yourself, some of these places, if they keep to the same idea next time round, where you have the second place being shored up with tactical voting, you could see a few changes next time round in regards to the constituency votes for the SNP. This could be their last hurrah with such a strong support for them. If Labour get their act together, they could be challenging the Tories and causing a few upsets next time round. And I hope there is some sort of strong opposition apart from the Conservatives. Not that I don't think that Ruth Davidson was a bad leader. She wasn't. She was pretty strong until she decided she decided to step down as leader, and then she got a bit embroiled about the House of Lords stuff and everything. But overall, she was a good leader, a good foil to Nicola Sturgeon, which I don't think Douglas Ross will be. And I really am concerned about Douglas Ross in regards to the damage he could do to the whole political system when it comes to up here. I'm not a fan of them. I've not warmed to him. I've warmed to Anna Sarwar. I don't mind Patrick Harvey. Obviously, I've got a preference for Willie Rennie in some respects, but Nicola Sturgeon as a leader, that's the strength here, is the strong leadership. If Nicola Sturgeon decides that she doesn't want to be First Minister for the whole term and steps down, and the SNP have a different leader, Angus Robertson, John Swinney, who's been leader before, they are probably your candidates. However, I would say that this is the last hurrah for the SNP with the current setup, the current way of doing things. I think you'll find a lot of new blood starting to come into the Parliament this time round. I think you'll see a lot of changes, and I think you'll see the team. I think you'll see a lot of changes in the Parliament overall, because the next big vote for everybody is down in England, and the next big vote is the UK general election. I'll briefly touch the other areas in a minute, because we had council elections, we had the London Mayor, we had all these different mayoral things, and we had the Welsh Parliament. I'll quickly touch them. But I've not really been following them. I've been following the Scottish one because I live in Scotland. I have an MSP and an MP, so I have 8 MSPs and an MP, of course. So I would be focusing on them more than anything else. And it's interesting to see discussion and my interest in this time round. It's been fun to do this time. I keep looking at my live stream live stream stuff just to see what's happening here. And it's been over an hour now we've been on, which is great. It's a good little video here. Kind of covers the base. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do here, but I thought, so I'm going to do a live stream just to see how we get on. And the new tower is obviously helped with that. But I think this time round, this is the last hurrah for the SNP. As the majority party, the big party, the main party. And if the other parties get that together and think more about what they could do for policies, the memory of the referendum, the Scottish independence referendum, would be 12 years past by the next time. Will there be a suggestion for legislation for the referendum? News articles are saying potentially it could go ahead today. I certainly think at the top of the Westminster they're not wanting to do it. They certainly will be strong on that. Will it go to court? I don't know. I don't even know if the SNP will get a chance, because the big spanner this time is COVID. Nicola Sturgeon, as First Minister, has made it clear she wants to carry on, get the recovery from COVID and get that all sorted. Still, vast majority of the population hasn't had their vaccinations yet. Restrictions are starting to lift, but we're still not back to normal, and I don't expect to be back for normal. I personally don't expect to be back for normal until probably the middle of next year. With normality, although things can be done, things can be filmed and done for the channel, but I'll go more about that in the channel update later in the month. But yeah, I think COVID could be something that dominates this parliament a bit more, and the recovery off the back of that. And I think independence will be on the back burner a little bit, as much as people want it, as much as there is the mandate there with the majority of the MSPs being for independence or wanting an independence referendum. I think other things are going to push that on the back burner, and if there is one, it will be very late in the parliament. Very late in the parliament. I doubt very much it's going to be in the first 2 years. I doubt very much it's going to be in the first 3 or 4 years. It will be in the 5th year of this parliament that will probably have the referendum, if we have it at all. But until then, I'm open to whatever comes across, whatever policies they do, who they speak to, what they say. I'm willing to be part of that conversation, but you need to give me some stuff to work with, and that's my thoughts. So yeah, let's go into the election just a little bit more and just have a look at the Wales results just very quickly, so we can have a look at this and see how it works. And they have regional list votes as well. I think it's slightly different from what we have in Scotland. But this is the scoreboard from this time round. So we have Labour, 1 seat more, so they've got 30, so they're just short as well. Although there's never been a majority in Wales. Labour have been the ruling party, the major party, for the past 22 years. The Welsh Senedd. It's actually the Welsh Parliament. It's actually the Welsh Senedd. It's called. So yeah, we've got Labour on 30. The Conservatives on 16, up 5. Plaid Cymru on 13, up 1. The Liberal Democrats hold their seat they had last time round, and none of the others got seats. In regards to the changes, 27 constituencies, so no changes overall. Those seats did change hands in Wales, but overall 27 constituencies, 3 regional seats, so up 1. Conservatives, 8 constituency seats, up 2. 8 regional seats, up 3. Plaid Cymru lost a constituency seat, but gained 2 on the regions. Then you've got Liberal Democrats, who lost the constituency seat, but kept their regional seat, so they're on 1. And UK Independence Party, which is the difference this time round, because they had UKIP had 7 regional seats last time round. They lost them all this time. So that's the situation in Wales. Police and Crime Commissioners. This is the Police and Crime Commissioners for Wales. That's your layout there. That's your list of all your commissioners. I didn't really go into that much, so I didn't know what was happening with that. The only interesting thing I can see here is that the North Wales Commissioner is now a Labour instead of Tory, instead of Plaid Cymru. And then we go into the other bits. So we'll go into the council elections, the England results. So the English council elections. Not all councils are up and running, but councils of control. The Tories have now got 62 councils in their control. Labour have got 44, so they're down 8. Tories were up 13. Lib Democrats have increased 1 more council in their control. The Greens have no council in their control. None of the other parties have that. No overall control. There's 6 less councils this time with no overall control this time round. And councillors, Labour lost 323. Conservatives gained 237. The Lib Dems gained 7. The Greens gained 88. That's quite substantial. Mabon Kerno 1. Reform UK 2. So that's increased from last time. Liberal Party, not the Liberal Democrats, different thing entirely, lost a councillor. UKIP lost all their councillors, so it just shows that UKIP is now a spent force in the UK. Independent Health Concern lost their 2 councillors. 34 new independents than last time. Resident Association, 5 more councillors. No, none of the others are different. So yeah, that's interesting. The mayoral elections. Now we have Bristol is Labour. So is Cambridge and Peterborough. That's a win for Labour. Then Doncaster, Labour. Andy Burnham, the most prominent of the mayors, won. Joanne Anderson won again in Liverpool. Liverpool City Region by Steve Rovin. Sadiq Khan, the other major one, he won again as London Mayor. Then we have North Tyneside still Labour, Salford still Labour, Tees Valley is still Conservatives, which is this red wall situation everybody's been talking about. The Tories are showing consolidation. I'll get to the by-election in a second. Then you've got the West Midlands with Andy Street. Then you've got the West Yorkshire region with Tracy Braben, Dan Norris for the West of England. Police and Crime Commissioners, there's a change. There's a Conservative taking over in Avon and Somerset. It's Tory still in Bedfordshire and Cambridgeshire. Then you've got Cheshire is taken over from Labour to Conservative. Then the Conservatives take Cleveland as well. They're still counting at the time of this for the Cumbria, so we don't know if it's still the Conservative there. Derbyshire taken over by Conservatives from Labour. Devon and Cornwall, again, waiting for the result. I forgot they're still counting that just now. I thought they're all in. Dorset become from Independent to Conservative. Labour holds Durham. Essex is held by the Conservatives. Gloucestershire, Hampshire and Hertfordshire are still waiting results. Humberside has been taken by a Conservative. Kent and Lancashire are waiting results. Tory is the mayor in Leicestershire, is Police and Crime Commissioner in Leicestershire. Lincolnshire is held by the Tories. Labour holds Merseyside. Norfolk is held by Tory still. Same with North Yorkshire. Northamptonshire still to declare. Northumbria continues to be Labour. Nottinghamshire is a Conservative. South Yorkshire still waiting the result. Conservative for Staffordshire, Suffolk and Surrey, all held by Tory still. Sussex, Thames Valley, Warwickshire and West Mercia are still waiting for their results. Labour holds the West Midlands and Wiltshire still waiting for the result. Now, the interesting one, the by-election. Let's just get this up here. So we've got the by-election. So, where is it? Where's the by-election? There's another by-election this week as well. I'm just going to see if I can find the results for the by-election. So I'll just come off the screen a second, just so we can have a look. Now, where is it? So, there we are. I'm just having a look to see if I can find it, because it's not coming up here, is it? That's all the council stuff. By-election was won by the Conservatives, basically, from Labour. First time that the Conservatives have won the seat since the 60s. It was the former seat of Labour politician Peter Mandelson back in the 90s and noughties. So that's an interesting situation here. So that has caused a bit of a problem for Labour, because Keir Starmer's struggling to get the party back up and running after the Jeremy Corbyn era, and that was a big hit for them for the situation. There's another by-election next week in Airdrie, because the Airdrie result, if I remember correctly, was the MP went in the Airdrie Shotts area for the SNP and won a seat there. So there's a by-election in Airdrie, because unlike Douglas Ross, who's keeping his Moray seat, the SNP candidate in Airdrie and Shotts decided to go and renege a seat Neil Gray. Neil Gray has won the seat quite comfortably over Richard Leonard, as you can see here. Then you've got Ross Lambie fourth, John Cole, so as the Liberal Democrat. So you got 5,500 majority, and Neil Gray was the equivalent member of Parliament for in Westminster, who resigned a seat, and so there's a by-election on Thursday. So the elections are not all over yet, but they're close enough gone, as makes no difference, I suppose. But yes, that is a quick overview of everything here. I didn't have too much of interest in the commissioners and the local councils in Wales. The by-election was interesting, but it wasn't really on my radar. The thing was the Scottish Parliament. I was interested in going through that, having a discussion with you, trying something new on the channel. I have been testing on Facebook. That seems to be working quite well as well. So it looks like going forward, the Streamstructors will be on Facebook, so as well as on YouTube. So hopefully you can join me next time for that as well. Thank you for those who are watching, who've watched live. Thank you for those who watch this afterwards. There's always a few that watch it afterwards, which is always nice to see and hear. But I am going to leave it there. If you like what you see, don't forget to like and share the video with the hashtag teamstructor. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit the notifications bell so you know when a new video comes out if you want to join the channel on a regular basis. I have a video coming out on Wednesday about the unboxing of the laptop, or not laptop, the Tower PC that I've been using for the past couple of live streams. And I also then we continue with the usual stuff. Next Sunday we have a Doctor Who review, which is the TV movie. Which is my review of the TV movie. It's 25 years since that came out, and it's what made me a proper fan. A bit weird, but it's true. And then we've got the second of the games of the Quizstructors. I keep saying Gamestructors. Quizstructors, big break with Arthur and Fraser that we recorded back in January. And then the week after, we have the channel update, which I'm looking to film in about a week's time in preparation for it coming out. A lot of discussions going on. I'm back on a proper live stream on the 6th of June. Is it the 6th of June? I think it's the 6th of June. Hold on, yeah, it's Sunday the 6th of June at 6 PM GMT, 7 PM UK time. Hopefully all the usual disembodied voices are with me then. Happy birthday, Jazz. Hopefully you're having a lovely time today. And shame I haven't been able to speak to you tonight, but I know you're having a meal with Frey and everybody at the moment, so hopefully I'll see you soon. But happy birthday, Jazz. Arthur, missing you already. Fraser, always missing you. And yeah, say hi to Sid for me as well. But that's it for now. Thanks guys for watching. If you have been either post or after, during the live stream or after, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks guys for watching, and yeah, I'll see you next time. See you later.